Sara Sharif, a chronicle of systematic violence that led to a girl's death, and the sentences handed down to her parents. Sara Sharif was born on January 11, 2013, in the town of Slough, in Berkshire, England. Her parents were Irfan Sharif and Alga Domin. Sara had long chestnut brown hair, large brown eyes, and a kind smile. She loved to sing, dance, and play the guitar. Sara's father, Irfan, was originally from Pakistan. In 2003, he moved to the United Kingdom on a student visa. At the time of the events in this story, he worked as a taxi driver. Sara's mother, Alga, was from Poland and spoke almost no English. The couple met in Poland, after which Irfan persuaded her to move with him to the United Kingdom. They married in 2009, and a year later their oldest son was born. Because his name has not been made public, he will be referred to from here on as Sara's older brother. Later, another child was born into the family, Sara's younger brother. Despite this, the family's happiness did not last long. Irfan and Alga separated in 2015 and soon formally divorced. At first, Sara and her younger brother lived with their mother. In 2019, however, custody was transferred to Irfan after that the children were first moved into a small two-bedroom public housing apartment in West Byfleet and later into a larger detached house on Harmont Road in Horsell. There Sara and her brother lived together with Irfan's new wife, 30-year-old Binash Batul, Irfan's 29-year-old brother Faisal Malik, and for other children whom the media simply called the children of this family, Irfan met Binash after giving her a ride in his taxi one day. At the time, he was still married to Alga, because Alga opposed raising the children in the Muslim tradition. After the divorce, Irfan almost completely cut off contact with her. In 2023, Sara first encountered bullying at school because of the hijab she wore. After that, she was taken out of school, and her stepmother began teaching her at home. Investigators later concluded that this decision was not solely connected to the conflict at school. On August 9, 2023, an emergency call was received in the United Kingdom from Islamabad, Pakistan. During the conversation, a man told the dispatcher that he had killed his daughter. According to him, he had not wanted her to die, but he had beaten her so severely that she died. That man was Irfan. By then he had already left England together with his wife, his brother, and 5 children. Early on the morning of August 10th, officers from Surrey Police arrived at the family home on Harmont Road. There they found Sara's body. It was lying on a bunk bed, covered with a blanket. All the adults who had been in the house were immediately treated as persons of interest in the investigation. The reason was not only the emergency call, but also a 3-page note left at the scene. In it, Irfan admitted that it was he who had beaten Sara and, as a result, had taken her life. He also asked that Sara be buried according to Muslim rites, and stated that he had left the country out of fear of possible consequences. During the autopsy performed 5 days later, on August 15th, 2023, numerous severe injuries were found on Sara's body. The forensic pathologist concluded that the injuries had been inflicted over a prolonged period In total, more than 70 separate injuries were recorded on Sara's body. Among them were marks of human bites, burns on the legs, numerous bruises, a fractured shoulder blade, a stab wound, a head injury, 11 fractures of the spine, and multiple injuries to the fingers, ribs, and other parts of the body. Specialists also found signs that Sara had been forcibly restrained. Investigators later established that before the beatings a bag or hood had been placed over her head, after which she was struck with a metal rod and a cricket bat. The number and severity of the injuries was so great that the experts could not determine with certainty which specific injury was the immediate cause of death. On September 12, 2023, police carried out an operation at a house in the city of Jhelum, Punjab province, Pakistan, where Yerfan's family had been hiding. 5 children who had been with the defendants were found there. No signs of physical abuse were detected on them. They were later placed under state care and put into foster families. The very next day, September 13th, all 3 adults were arrested at London's Gatwick Airport after returning to the United Kingdom. It should be noted that there is formally no official extradition treaty between the United Kingdom and Pakistan. That fact, however, did not prevent their return and subsequent arrest. On September 14th, Sara Sharif, Binash Batul, and Faisal Malik were charged with murder, as well as additional charges of causing or allowing the death of a child. During police questioning, Binash almost completely refused to cooperate with the investigation. She confirmed her identity and showed that she understood the essence of the murder charge against her. On all subsequent questions concerning the circumstances of Sara's death, her own role in what had happened, the actions of other family members, and her own relationship with the victim, the woman answered the same way: no comment. What happened to Sara? Comment. What did you see? Comment. How did you leave Sara? Comment. Investigators repeatedly reminded Binash that she had previously stated she wanted to return to the United Kingdom and prove her innocence in a British court. Even after that reminder, she refused to give any explanations or present her own version of events. All 3 defendants remained in custody until the start of the court hearings. Preliminary hearings took place at Guildford Magistrates' Court and at the Central Criminal Court, the Old Bailey, in London by video link. In December 2023, Sara Sharif, Binash Batul, and Faisal Malik pleaded not guilty to any of the charges against them. On October 8, 2024, a jury was selected, and on October 4 began. During the proceedings, the prosecution presented to the court the recording of the emergency call that Irfan had made after arriving in Pakistan. During that call, he admitted beating Sara and stated that he had not intended to take her life. The recording showed that the man was in an extremely distressed emotional state and had difficulty explaining what had happened. First, he asked the operator to note the address of the family home on Harmont Road, after which he provided the remaining details. Then Irfan repeated several times that it was he who had killed Sara, answering a question about the reasons for what had happened. The man said that during her last 3 or 4 weeks, Sara had supposedly been misbehaving, and he had tried to discipline her. According to him, during the punishment, something occurred that ultimately led to her death. Irfan also stated that Sara was already showing no signs of life when he left the house. He claimed he had tried to perform resuscitation, but had panicked and decided to leave. Later, the operator repeatedly tried to clarify the circumstances and the caller's location. In the end, Irfan said that about 36 hours had passed since Sara's death. He also stated that he had driven to the airport by car and left it in the parking lot of Terminal 3 at the same time. The man claimed that during the call he was already in another car belonging to an acquaintance. Despite the operator's persistent questions, Irfan refused to give his exact location. By this point, emergency services were already heading to the address he had given. The operator tried to persuade Irfan to return home and wait for the police, but he continued to evade answering about his whereabouts. He only repeated that he intended to return to the country and then go to a police station and surrender to the authorities. When the operator again tried to find out exactly where the man was and asked him to name at least the nearest landmarks or town, Irfan gave no specific answer. At that point, the recording of the call ended. On December 11th, 2024, the jury returned its verdict. Sara Sharif and Bainash Batul were found guilty on all the main counts. Faisal Malik was acquitted of murder, but found guilty of causing or allowing the death of a child. On December 17th, the defendants again appeared in court for sentencing. During the hearing, Sara's mother, Alga, read a statement about the consequences of the crime for her family. She said that Sara had always been a smiling child with a bright and kind personality. According to the woman, the only thing she had been able to do for her daughter after her death was to arrange a proper Catholic funeral, addressing her former husband and his wife. She called them sadists and executioners. Judge John Kavanaugh noted that the defendants had shown not the slightest remorse. In his words, the treatment of Sara had amounted to systematic torture. While delivering the decision, the judge dwelt in detail on the nature of the injuries Sara had received. He noted that many of the injuries bore characteristic linear marks indicating the use of long, hard objects, and also pointed to signs that means of restraining movement had been used. In addition, the judge reminded the court that Sara Sharif and Bainash Batul had admitted the facts of repeated beatings of Sara with a metal rod that had been part of a child's high chair. That object was found by investigators in the house after her death. The defendants also admitted using a cricket bat that was discovered during the search, although they later tried to present what had happened as a single episode. The judge stated that he had no doubt the beatings had been regular in nature. The court also took note of the findings of the forensic medical experts. Even without counting the 71 fresh injuries, specialists identified 25 bone fractures, including a fractured collarbone to fractured shoulder blades, multiple rib fractures, a fractured upper arm bone, 11 spinal fractures, and fractures of the bones of both arms. Taking this into account, The court ultimately concluded that what was involved was not one specific instance of cruel treatment but prolonged and systematic aggression. In the court's view, the evidence collected showed that over a long period, Sara had repeatedly been subjected to extremely brutal beatings involving significant force. Some of the injuries deserved separate attention because of their severity. Forensic experts discovered a fracture of the hyoid bone in the neck area. Such an injury is extremely rare and is usually associated with strong manual compression of the neck. According to the specialists, this injury could have resulted from one or more episodes of strangulation. Was also established that several days before her death, Sara had received a severe head injury as a result of a powerful blow to the head. As already noted earlier, at the time of death, Sara also had serious burns on the inner side of both ankles. According to the medical conclusions, such injuries could have arisen only as a result of exposure to very high temperature. The wounds had remained untreated, and no one had sought medical help. In addition, during the autopsy, 6 bite marks were found, 5 on the left forearm and 1 on the inner side of the left thigh. Experts established that they had been left by an adult. Dental samples were taken from Sara Sharif, Faisal Malik, and Sara's older brother for comparative examination. All of them were excluded as possible sources of these marks. As for Binash Batul, she refused to provide samples for examination. The court separately noted this circumstance when considering the case. Although the bite marks themselves were not the cause of death, they were regarded as further evidence of systematic cruel treatment. Medical and forensic data also showed that in the last weeks of her life, Sara's freedom of movement had been restricted. The investigation established that adhesive tape and a jump rope had been used for this purpose. It was further established that plastic bags had been placed over Sara's head and secured with adhesive tape. Only small holes for breathing were made in the bags. The court noted that such treatment was exceptionally cruel. Throughout the proceedings, it was repeatedly emphasized that all of this had taken place inside a home and had been carried out by adults who were obligated to care for her safety and well-being. At the conclusion of the trial, Judge John Kavanaugh imposed the following sentences. Sara Sharif was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 40 years. Binash Batul was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 33 years. Faisal Malik was sentenced to 16 years imprisonment. Long before Sara's death, there had been numerous warning signs. Documents and case materials show that even before Sara was born, the police and social services were well acquainted with this family. Between 2010 and 2012, police officers responded at least 4 times to the family's residence in connection with reports of physical aggression. It is also reliably known that as early as 2010, Child Protection Services in Surrey became involved in the situation. This occurred immediately after reports of cruel treatment and neglect of Sara's older brother. That same year, the boy was found unsupervised in one of the town's stores. Subsequently, Sara Sharif was arrested on suspicion of assaulting Olga and the child. According to the case materials, the blow the man inflicted on Sara's older brother was so strong that a clear palm print remained on the boy's back. In 2011, reports indicated that Sara's older brother had told teachers that his father was beating him. Only a year later, however, he changed his account and stated that the aggression had come from his mother. Later, he was again found unsupervised, this time in the center of the town of Woking, approximately 800 meters from home. In 2013, Sara's older brother received a burn from a hot iron injury similar to the damage that years later would be found on Sara's own body. After these events, the children were temporarily placed under state protection. This meant that responsibility for their safety partially passed to the police and social services. In November 2014, Sara and her brothers were again briefly placed in a foster family after Sara's older brother reported cruel treatment by the parents. According to the boy, his mother had bitten him, while his father constantly pinched him and hit him with his fists. Alga and Irfan, for their part, claimed that the marks found were nothing other than the consequences of chickenpox. In 2015, Irfan and Alga took part in court proceedings concerning custody of the children. Alga accused her former husband of beating her and described him as a cruel and controlling person. Although these statements did not receive final judicial confirmation, they were taken into account during the consideration of the case. It should also be noted that even before meeting Alga, Irfan had been accused of physical aggression and of unlawfully confining partners. This concerned at least two separate incidents dating to 2007 and 2009. It was reported that one of Irfan's former partners may have been a minor at the time of their relationship. According to available data, over the course of his life, Sara Sharif was arrested at least 5 times in connection with various incidents of a violent nature. In 2015, Sara and her younger brother returned home again, while their older brother remained in foster care. According to available information, he never again lived with his parents on a permanent basis. That same year, Sara was again placed in a foster family. This occurred immediately after Alga left the home, reporting domestic violence. Soon afterward, the couple finally separated, and Sara began living with her mother. In view of Irfan's past, he was allowed only short meetings with the children under the supervision of specialists. After that, the situation stabilized for a time. This continued until the spring of 2019, when Sara reported that her mother was hurting her. This statement became an important circumstance in the subsequent custody proceedings. Sara told her father that her mother was trying to drown her. Irfan recorded these statements on video and passed the recording to social services. It remains unclear whether Sara's words were entirely voluntary or whether they may have been influenced by external circumstances. In any event, already in